4 o'clock. You want to get started?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you guys hit those doors back there? We're going to get started here. Appreciate it. All right. So I'm Jeff Silver. I'll be your next speaker. I know it's probably been a long day for all you guys. There's been some good sessions. I've had the pleasure to sit in on those, and I hope that today, in this session, if you come away with 1 or 2 key things to help you in your day job, then this will be worth it. How many students are there in here today? It doesn't look like, yeah, got a few. Okay. So a little different for you guys. A little different, right? How many practitioners, right? All right. So, look, if you're a practitioner, my hope is that you step away and you look at your own security stack and you say to yourself, what am I going to do next year to make my stack more effective? Could I use cloud proxy technology? Does that make sense? Does it not make sense? And if it doesn't, do I understand why? Then you walk away. If you're a student, what you want to walk away is, hey, is that technology interesting to me? Is it interesting to me? What can I do while I'm a student to understand that? So when I'm an operator, when I'm an administrator, I really understand the underlying technology and why it matters to the business. All right. So I work for Symantec. We have about 100 different security products. I am not going to sit here and tell you about Symantec and all that good stuff. We want to talk about technology today. All right? So we know who you guys are. Let me lay out the next 50 minutes. A very quick overview of proxy technology is just a foundation. We're not going to take a world of proxy and cover it even in an hour, let alone 5 to 10 minutes. But I want to give you a foundation because not everyone here may even understand what that is. Next, I want to go over some real stories. Real on that, I administer a couple environments. There are things that happened in the last few weeks, and I think they're interesting, and I want to show them because I think sometimes real stories hone in on why this stuff matters. And then we're going to end with network architecture. And architecture does matter because you have to understand where this fits in the modern day enterprise. Otherwise, it's just an academic experiment. And many of you are practitioners, so you got to understand where and why it fits in the big picture today. All right. So what is a proxy? And I will tell you right off the bat, proxy does not compete with firewall technology. Firewall technology is not dead. Every enterprise that I work with uses firewalls today. Every single one, 100% of them. No company has one item in their stack. They use a bunch of different products, and many will use a firewall and a proxy. So what's the difference? Fundamentally, you're terminating the connection, and that's the difference. Firewall does not do that. Firewall does not act as a good man in the middle. In our business, we think of man in the middle, we think of the bad guy. Because really, a lot of times, that's exactly what's happening at Starbucks. Someone goes and fires up their laptop, and they don't realize they're part of the man in the middle attack. But in modern day enterprises today that use proxy, this is man in the middle, but it's a good guy that are doing this to keep Alice safe from Bob, if Bob is a threat actor. So the key thing is we are terminating the connection, and I'll show you a visual of how that works in a moment. The firewall does not wait for everything to terminate. It just simply passes packets along. And we'll take a look at that here in a moment. But there's another thing to factor in as you look at this. In the larger threat landscape, email, right? There's an attachment, someone clicks on that, that's bad potentially. And then web. And in some ways, email right to web by clicking on a link, and we'll go over that in a moment. But web and clicking on links is one of the biggest threat vectors that we have to deal with as security practitioners. With that, we got to look at not just the connection, which Proxy helps with, and we'll explore that in a moment, but when they go to the origin content server and download an object, willingly or unwillingly. So, let's talk about Proxy and what that really means. All this comes to the Proxy, and then we see the whole thing and it gets dumped. In a firewall, no, not really. In a firewall, what's going to happen is the malware piece by piece, is going to go through and be inspected. Maybe it will be caught, maybe not. When you look at a proxy, and this is important, it terminates the connection. It acts as a man in the middle in the opposite way. So this object gets looked at in its entirety, not just a packet by packet by packet. That's fundamental difference. That's what you have to understand. Now, we're going to go deeper into this in a moment, but there are two fundamentals. What is the connection? When I go to ESPN, am I absolutely, well, that's a bad example. You go to ESPN, you just hit that site, and there's a gazillion JavaScripts that are running. There's all kinds of crap. It's like one of the dirtiest, it's like CNN, right? You hit these sites, and there's so much going on in the background, the user doesn't even think they're downloading, right? But the reality is there's the connection, and there are objects. And when you're dealing with network vulnerabilities, and you're dealing with looking at attacks, those are the two things to look at. It's not just the user going to the site, it's what that site is downloading either willingly, knowingly by the end user, or without them knowing it, because it's some sort of script running in the background, or some web ad, or some analytic they have no idea they're being redirected to. All those things are a threat if you're an administrator trying to protect the environment. So, connections, objects, but in the end, it's the intelligence that's the key. This is really what matters. This is what matters, because unfortunately, that far end object, the content server, it's too dynamic. It changes all the time. There's no way anything you can purchase in itself is going to stop dynamically the threats in the threat landscape. And so Intel is huge. So here's a freebie for you, sitereview.bluecoat.com. It is free. I use it. Every one of you, I guarantee, regardless of what you do for a living, you are your parents' and your friends' IT department. That's the way it is. Unfortunately, you are. And they send you stuff. Hey, is this malware? I love those emails. Why are you sending me this thing? Or is this link? Should I not have clicked on this link? I love that. Those are my favorites. Should I not have clicked on this link? It is my all-time favorite. The first thing I do, and the first thing you can do, is go to sitereview.bluecoat.com, drop the link in that your aunt or uncle just clicked on, and you will see, and I'll show you in a moment, what's going to happen. You'll get an idea, and you can confirm, yes, you're completely owned, or you're not. But there's more. Because people ask, well, what do you do to test out malware? Like, how do you know, Jeff? And it's a difficult thing. But these are other sites that you can use. iCar is important. It is the known good. It is the gold standard. It is the most boring of malware that you can possibly use, because it's not really malware. It's just a test file that fires off of every vendor's engines for malware. But it's important because it's safe. Imagine you want to buy a car, and you say to the car sales guy, hey, let's go for a test drive. He's like, sure. He's like, hey, do you mind if I do a head-on collision? He's like, what? No, you can't do that. Well, really, you gotta understand, my family's gonna be in this car, and I need to make sure all the airbags are gonna work right, because I love my family, and I gotta make sure. He's gonna be like, you need to pull over, get out, you can walk, we're done here, because he's gonna think you're crazy. But the fact of the matter is, when you're evaluating solutions for your environment, you need to have a way to do this. And that way is probably not in your production environment, because that's doing a head-on collision, which is bad. You don't want to get fired. You introduce real malware in your environment, and the solution you're turning up doesn't stop it. Now it's in the wild, in your environment. That's really bad. This is a conundrum. This right here is a cloud car. It's probably a benign file that you can use. And then Tech Defense is one that I use, although this is a zoo, right? Tread carefully. Tread carefully. But once again, if you say, where can I go to get malware that's probably not going to, I'm not going to lose my job and test? Here. I will warn you right now. When a customer says to me, hey, can you bring real malware into my environment? My answer is, I will give you real malware, but you will execute it in your environment. I will not execute it in your environment. In most states, probably not Delaware. Do we even have laws in Delaware? But in most states, that's a felony, right? That's a felony. You cannot do that. I can't introduce malware legally, and nor should I in your corporate environment. All right, this one was my favorite. I'm at church. This was just last Sunday. And our children's care person says to me, Jeff, I got blocked going to the site. I'm really upset about it because I really want to get here. Orphan Care Coalition. I'm not making this stuff up. You can go in there right now and check this out. So what's interesting is it is listed as a charitable organization, because it is, but unfortunately it has been owned. And so now it's listed as malicious sources and malnets. And because I'm blocking that, she got blocked. She's like, well, how do I get there? I'm like, you're not. At least not on one of our laptops, you're not. And she's looking at me dumbfounded. I'm like, you're just not going there, which comes to the next issue, which we have to deal with is, you guys, no matter how good your technology is in your organization, you need to have a process. A process to deal with what happens when a user can't get to where they want to go, even when it's going to hurt them and the company. That's really, really important. But if you walk away with nothing else, that website is very valuable. It is free, and it's good because not only does it categorize sites, it categorizes up to 4. So if it is a charitable organization but has been owned, it shows that. This is what the end user is going to see in a proxy environment, right? And they don't like that. And it doesn't matter what it says here. In the end, they're going to call the help desk, right? And you need to estimate process matters, because in the end, you don't want to be in your organization a place where you've set something up, your organization is more secure, but you didn't address the process, and now emotions get heightened. And people call up their bosses, which call your boss's boss, and they say, turn that crap off. Yeah. Turn that crap off. I can't get to my sites, or they're infected. Well, we don't care. I got to get there to do business. And this happens. I'm telling you, be careful of the non-technology problem. People in your organization want to get to where they want to go, and unless they're educated in, hey, if you get this, you call this help desk, they will help you with your options. Right? The option, maybe you go use your own home laptop and do that. Let me know how that goes. But that's an important element as you look at Cloud Proxy, or any user-facing, impacting security software that could put a screen like this up in front of them. All right. I said intelligence really matters. Intelligence really matters. One of the previous speakers had brought up that, I can't remember, he said like 1 million pieces of malware per day are produced, right? Imagine how many websites are turned up every day and then turned down within 24 hours. That's a lot, right? And almost all of them are bad. I mean, look, the good sites, they are up and they stay up. But regardless, one of the nice things about proxy technology and the intelligence behind it is the idea of categorizing sites. Because when you categorize sites, not only can you stop the category phishing, stop the category malnet, stop the category proxy avoidance and other badness, but if the business said, and I have a pharmaceutical customer that said to me, hey, can we use the proxy to stop the contracted guards from streaming high-def TV in the middle of the day? Yeah, you can. Why? Because there's a category for that. And so we could say, and in an Active Directory, we identify them, we say that group can no longer go to this category, boom, done. It's pretty neat. Now, was that a function of the security team? It became that. It became that. But they were able to go back to this and say, yeah, business, we can do this. It's not, you know, they gave them guidance against it, saying, you know, you're going to piss off the guys with guns, but, you know, that's a whole nother story. Well, and, you know, we'll go over, I want to go over threat risk levels next as well, which is another part of intelligence and solving a couple problems. In one of the real world stories I'm going to share with you that happened very recently, I made a mistake as an administrator of my policy, which actually turned out infecting one of the end users that I support. And it was because my policy, she had bothered me enough that I turned off suspicious as a category. And I'll show you later why that came back to bite me in the butt and how I solved that without overblocking. And I did it by using risk levels. And so another item that you're going to see in pretty much any security solution that deals with web today is threat risk level. So you have categories, right? Is this a controlled substance? Is this pornography? Is this, you know, an abortion site, right? There's like 100 different categories. But one of the things is not every site is categorized. It cannot be. There are suspicious and there are uncategorized. And in that middle ground is where it gets tough as a security practitioner. It gets tough because you don't want to overblock. When Sight and Sound Theater came out this summer with an event called Moses Event, it was a theater. Many of you may have heard of it out in Lancaster, and it was uncategorized. Totally clean, legit site. Couldn't get there because I was blocking uncategorized. Totally legit. That was overblocking. My fault, right? And, you know, the way to overcome that is with threat risk levels. I'm going to block uncategorized, but only at risk level 7 and above. That's how you overcome that. And that's a big deal to understand. Threat risk levels really matter. The difference between categories and threat risk levels, every site gets a threat risk level. Every site. If the site just came up 5 minutes ago and it has no history, by default it's a 5. As time moves on, if there's shadiness, it goes up to 6, 7. By the end of the day, it may be an 8 if it's bad. But every site gets a threat risk level. That is an important key distinction when you're talking about web security. All right, so let's cruise through. All right, my students, what's the difference between, give me an idea, give me why is tell me about spear phishing. What makes that different than regular phishing? And I'll put you on the spot, you guys in the back.
You use it to target high value individuals.
That's it, that's right. Spear phishing takes a little bit more effort, but I'm targeting someone in specific. At one of the sites I was administering over the last couple months, there was a spear phishing campaign, which, by the way, I found out is part of a larger campaign going on against academia today, both at the university level and high school level. So it wasn't just the school that I'm administering. It happens to be a larger campaign. So I get an email forwarded, this was the email from one of the administrators there, school administrators. Should I not have clicked on that link? No, you shouldn't have clicked on it. Email is the vector of compromise. In the end, it became a web problem, not an email problem. Why? Because they clicked on the link. Can you see, how's the grammar here? It's not too bad, right? There's one minor mistake, but it's really not that bad. What stands out in this phishing attack? Anyone?
Sense of urgency.
Sense of urgency, that's it. Thank you. There is a sense of urgency. Every single phishing attack that I've seen, it's a spear phish. It's a sense of urgency. When incorporate them, what's that?
I always tell my kids, if you need an answer now, the answer is no.
Right, there you go, that's right. You know, seriously, when in corporate America do we culturally use email for an emergency? If it's the millennials, they use text. If it's our generation, we phone, right? No one sends an email saying, hey, drop your credentials in, and you gotta do it today. Your boss is picking up the phone and talking to you if you gotta do something like now. So, always a sense of urgency. That's the issue. So, let's go through now, and let's go ahead and deconstruct this attack. So the first thing, we'll use our site that we just learned you can use, and I drop it in, and imagine that. I know, you find that shocking, it was categorized as phishing. I know, that's hard to believe. But let's go a little bit deeper now. So I use into our intelligence group called the GIN. I always thought it's funny because it's named after hard liquor. But, you know, I have the GIN for Global Intelligence Network, not the stuff you drink. But what I want to see is, where is this being hosted out of? In this case, it's the Netherlands. The risk level is 10 on a 1 to 10, which means it's absolutely confirmed bad. Other sites have reported this up. It is known bad. I can click on the link, I can click on this to get a screenshot, and really, if you were to look at it, it's just a credential harvester, that's all it is. And I can see that it's labeled suspicious and blah, blah, blah. So going, one more item, back to, because that's the technology part. People say, why is it math? By the way, if you're doing the math, I admit this is old. So if you were doing, I know some of you were doing the math, you're like, that Bitcoin's a lot more than that, bro. Yeah, this is, that one's old. This is back when Bitcoin was like a few. But this is off the dark web, right? Which I think is just one giant scam engine. But in any case, why does it matter? Because, you know, your stuff gets sold. When people say, why does it matter? They're almost cynical about computer security in the workplace or outside. It matters because when you get owned, your stuff gets sold. So it does really matter. All right, let's go over incident number 2. Incident number 2 is a little more interesting. Malware loves its mommy. One thing I can tell you from my experience, malware always speaks back home. When you have a cloud proxy agent on a machine, I don't care if your antivirus picks up, finds the malware or not. I guarantee you, you will see the command and control going back. And that's how you can know. And it is very, very difficult for the malware writers to overcome that. Because if they don't speak back, they don't reap the value. It's hard for them to know that the machine has been fully infected, and if they don't know that, there's risk in their sales efforts. Remember, what matters to a malware author who's trying to sell? It's that when they say, hey, 80% of my stuff is going to work, and if it's reputation, if the people respond back, oh man, this guy's a, you know, he's a scam artist, none of his stuff works, he goes out of business. There's no better business bureau in the dark web. So malware loves its mommy. It's got to speak back, so he feels confident, the bot herder feels confident that in fact that machine is infected. So you guys remember the movie Aliens? That crap came out of his gut. That was crazy. It always going to speak back to the mothership. That's how I know. When they say, how do you know it's infected, Jeff? How do you know? This is how I know. Now I'm going to show a close-up of this in just a moment because I know it's hard to see. But this is what an administrator sees. And what you can see here is this is the PC, this is the login, and then I'm going to show a close-up because I know it's hard to see. This machine, there's a couple reasons right off the bat I know this is owned. One, it's 5 p.m. and no kid is in the school at 5 p.m. unless he's on football field. Okay, they're not in the PC lab at 5 p.m. The other thing is notice the time hacks. They're precise. That is automation, right? At 5:03, 23, 5:13, 23, 5:23, 23, and so on. going to unblock my web because the malware can't get out. He's trying to figure out how do I get back to the mothership. Yeah, you've just been Stalloned, right? That's how I know. You are owned. So now, now, that machine has been Stalloned. So when they say, how do you know? That's how I know. You want to see? That's how I know. Now, what's the proper way to deal with a machine that has been Stalloned? Nuke it from where? It's the only way to be sure. You just re-image. Malware is way too elegant these days to think you're going to go in the registry. Way too elegant. You're not going in, you're not cleaning it up. And if you do go in and get some tools to clean it up, I guarantee you're also going to take out things that are known good. In preparation for this, I just went ahead, I took a machine that was owned, and I took a program that's designed, it's like a heavy duty, in fact, we use it, Symantec uses it, but we don't sell it. It's a tool, it's a heavy duty cleaner. And I went through and I ran through to see if I can get rid of the infection. I did. I also got rid of the backup program that was running on the machine and a few other reputable programs. And by the way, I rendered them useless because I removed the registry keys, right? So what I'm telling you is don't try to spend a day trying to get rid of malware. Re-image. It's quicker, unless you just want to do it for lab purposes because you're like, I'm just so into this, which is fine, but it's time consuming.
Grandpa wants to know if he can use his restore point and go back to 2 weeks ago and if instead of having to reinstall everything.
That's a great, see now, if it's not in corporate, and now there's no backup image, that's worth trying, right? One, there's little damage to try that, because it's very easy. And if everything works fine, great. If it doesn't, then you're back to this. Most malware, first thing it does, it kills the restore points. And then you really know you're on it, right? But that's a very good question and a good point. All right, real world incident number 3. This is a little more detailed. This is the one where I made a mistake as an administrator. I have since fixed that mistake. But this is real. This just happened, as you can see, October 18th, not that long ago. So Pete will laugh because he actually knows this person. So this is the domain, this is the office administrator. And I'm administering one day and I just see this and you'll have to excuse, I wasn't sorted on the time column here, I was sorted on another one, so this is not time in order. But you'll see at about 9:33, the 9:44, 45, and 10:45, 4 and only 4 attempts to speak outbound. I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. Not chatty, 4 times. 4 times blocked because we said, hey, this category, I was blocking this category. Malicious outbound botnets. But this caught my attention, like, oh, crapola, her machine's infected. But you see the HTTP code 403, blocked, didn't go out. I believe, and I purposely haven't re-imaged your machine yet because I want to wait a full month and see if I see this again in 30 days. Because I think it went out 4 times, said, ooh, I can't get out, I'll go dormant for a little bit, so you try again. I don't know. We'll know on the 18th of November. So, close up. Here's the site. Check this out, smallbiznewshorizon.com. Now, interesting, right? So now I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So let me go a little deeper. What does a good admin do? Dump the logs. I dump the logs. Let's take a closer look. So you see a web ad for WB Mason up top, then the real Verizon, but it's an ad, and then you see a real hit to Verizon.com, legit. Underneath that, legit, smallbiznews.verizon.com, legit. And then down here, needle off the record, everything went wrong. But notice, this is what happens when the administrator's an idiot. Allow. Why? Because I wasn't blocking suspicious. This site was labeled as suspicious because it's not a Verizon site. It is not a Verizon site. It looks like it, It looks like this, but it is not that. Now you can see in outbound spyware here, the next line, the very next entry, 403, it is blocked outbound spyware. So I was able to block that, but the machine's already infected. So now back to my Threat Explorer, and I can see smallbiznewsverizon.com. You see the redirect? You guys see that? That was the site. Notice the risk level, 8. Had I been blocking suspicious threat risk level 8 and above, this infection never would have happened. I am doing that now. Why is it an 8? We're starting to see bad behavior. This is what the good site looked like. She had hit this site, risk level 2. This is a standard Verizon. Bad, good, bad, good. Right? I mean, basically, that is what happened. And now, her machine is part of the vast zombie bot army. Right? So I will eventually re-image it, but I do want to watch its behavior because she swears there's no. Did I tell you how elegant malware is? She's like, no, there's no difference in my PC. You know, I see the stuff trying to go out, but she can't, right? Because malware is elegant now. All right. Let's just stop for a second. I went through a few use cases. Any questions that you guys have on those use cases, what you saw? I know we went through it very, very rapidly, but any questions on threat risk levels? Things like how geolocation would work. I didn't really go deep into that. Or categorization. Yes, sir.
What are your criteria on where you're doing blocking? You know, 7 versus a 5 on the suspicious sites?
That is a great question. So for me, it's going to be 7 and above. I will not block 5, 6. Because when you block 5, 6, in my opinion, you're now over blocking in the enterprise. Because it's there's too many sites that are going to, first of all, the default is 5. So any new site that comes up, you block that. You might as well not even use threat risk levels.
How quickly do they move up or down?
Oh, it's all the time. Okay, that's another great question. One of the things, when you guys in the enterprise are looking at any vendor, it doesn't matter. Every vendor has an Intel group, by the way. Every single vendor has one. McAfee, Symantec, Palo Alto, every group has Intel people. They wear flip-flops and cargo shorts, they drink Mountain Dew and eat pepperoni pizza, and they're not allowed to speak to customers. They're in locked rooms, and you know, they're great guys. They like to pull legs off of insects and, you know, figure out how to deconstruct bombs. That's what they do, and you know, all companies have these guys. And they're really smart. They have IQs off the charts. They're like 135 to 150. The reality is that this stuff moves so dynamically that it's literally fluid. It's literally fluid. And so they have automated programs that are always running and changing the threat risk levels as things move. And that's how they do it. There are times when they have to have an analyst actually do a human interaction with it. And that happens too. Typical case of that is you as an administrator, you reach out, you're like, hey, this site I think is miscategorized. By the way, it happens a lot. They're like, you don't have this right. And they'll respond within an hour. And they'll say, it'll tell you whether a machine did it or an analyst. A web analyst has reviewed it and we changed the category. In a worst case, they say, they come back and they argue with you. No, we're not changing it. We think you're wrong. And it happens once in a while too. But it is really fluid. So when, whatever vendor you're working with, make sure that you have a portal to that Intel group. Because if you don't, I don't care how good the product looked, it's not the product, it's the Intel group behind it that's going to make a difference as to how much you block. So that's important. My customers, I make sure they get a login to this as well. We don't really sell this, but we guard this very carefully because it is that portal into our Intel group. But my customers, I can get them one login for this. There are criteria. You gotta be an American citizen, you gotta agree to play by the rules. There's a few things you have to agree to, but most security practitioners, if you're not gonna play by the rules, then you're probably not in this business anyway. Yes, sir.
So, is malware smart enough to, like you said, the risk level is fluid, it changes
Yeah.
minute by minute, hour by hour?
Yep.
Is malware sophisticated enough to proxy a proxy, like make it look like it's safe until something gets cracked through automation process or a hiccup somewhere?
That's a good question. Let's explore that for a moment. There's an origin content server serving up malware. It got turned up 10 minutes ago. There's absolutely no, it's reachable, but it's going to go through other devices to get there. Right? Is that what we're saying? Whether proxy or some other,
VPN, proxy?
yeah, there's something somewhat obscuring that origin content server. That probably would automatically jump the threat risk level to a 6 or 7, just right there.
Okay.
Right? Because now it doesn't look like something that's out of the ordinary.
Okay.
Right? So, but yeah, that could be done. But see, then the threat risk level goes up. The other thing is the cert. Is a cert valid? It's amazing to me how many sites that are legitimate sites that have allowed their cert to lapse. That's unbelievable. And I was talking with our Intel network saying, why are we not threat risk rating these guys at 8 or 9? Like, well, they're legitimate sites. We can't do that. Like, yeah, we can. Oh, yeah, we can. You know? So that's the current fight I've got with those guys. Because there are other indicators of compromise that would force those businesses to revalidate their certificate. Right? It's crazy how many certs are expired.
It seems like that's something that Chrome's sorting out as we speak, right?
Is that right?
Well, I mean, like they're gradually phasing out or marking like HTTP as like with a gray lock, and I think pretty soon they'll have it marked as a red lock.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, I think at some point they might just like, like start showing notifications when that sort of stuff comes up.
Yeah, I would love to see that where we start to really lock that in. I mean, that would be great, just because people, it just seems like bad internet hygiene, especially if you're a legitimate company. Yes, sir.
I find blocking uncategorized is one of my best defenses in the environment. On your 1 through 7s that you say, or whatever it is that your 1 through 6s you're allowed to go through, why don't you leverage a click to proceed?
What is it now?
A click to proceed. They get a banner page.
Yep.
Warning, uncategorized site. Do you want to be the person that takes down the entire company? I literally said, do you want to be that guy?
So
Is there something read that far? Or just
let me tell you.
I might say it's blocked. No, it isn't actually blocked. It's click OK to proceed.
So, by the way, that is a great function. We do have companies that use that. We call it a coaching page, which is a very sanitized, legalized version of what you just said. And typically, the security admin wants to write that in. So are you sure you want to be the guy that takes down the company? By the time the general counsel gets through with that, it has been reworded to something that no one even understands. They can't even understand what the hell it said, right? But coaching pages are used for that. Say, you really sure you want to move forward with this? One of the problems that we've seen in large enterprise businesses, users feel entitled. They're like, yeah, hell yeah, I want to go. That's why I went to this site. Boom. To why you're moving forward, and people are right in there, kiss my ass. Really, and the security admin gets that, right? Because all that gets logged, and then they go back to that person's boss and say, this probably isn't the behavior we should be having here at XYZ Company.
You said they've done, or they've analyzed it. Do you know whether there's at least a small decrease in the amount of like visiting after the implementation of coaching pages?
There is. There's a known scientific decrease, because what happens is word gets out. Hey, they're watching us, right? And then like, well, what's going to happen if you hit go for? I don't know, but you're probably going to get fired, right? So it depends on the cultures. If it's a financial, people there know better. They simply won't move forward because they know they will be fired. In the financials, pharmas, hospitals, like in those environments, DoD, they know I will not have a job today.
We look at that. We don't do that. And that was a conscious decision around concern that we were training people to click OK.
Yeah, it's a concern, right? Is that you're still allowing the end user to click OK. You're putting the power in the end user. So I would say it is doable, and depending on the industry, makes sense whether to use it or not. If you're using that today and it's been effective, good for you. As a security guy, I hate that feature because, you know, I'm always worried when they click it and they go for it anyway. I gotta do the cleanup, and that's in the end.
What I'm saying is the content and control for the ones you are ordinarily going to let go through. You just said 1 through 6 you're going to let them go. 0 through 10 unprompted.
So, okay. Here's the other thing you got to be cautious of. A lot of companies have a limit. What is my threshold of how much I can bother the users? There's a communications company in Philadelphia. This company has a very strong culture of let people get their job done. Now look, nothing wrong with that culture. If I'm a security guy, I'm going to live within that because you know what? I want to keep my job.
That's a fantastic idea.
You said that, I didn't. But yeah, you know, that's something you got to live within. So you have to know your own company. And so now, whether you're a practitioner or student, this is important. Not just the technology. You have to understand the culture of your organization. Because you put this stuff in there, you put proxy technology, anything that's going to have an end user blocking experience, man, you better understand the culture. Because you do not want to deal with the repercussions in a negative way. That is very, very important. And when I say understand your culture, understand also the process in which things get remediated. Because if it's not strong, you want to be a hero, go help make that strong. Right? That is important. I have seen, you know, I have the luxury because I work at Symantec and I get to work with a lot of different customers. I get to see all the different cultures out there. And they do vary drastically. You want to be a hero, you got to be careful. Help fix the processes, and you'll really make a difference. All right, we got just a few more minutes. I want to go into architecture because architecture really matters. You can be a technologist, you can really understand how technology works, you can understand the impact of it, but if you don't understand the bigger picture and how it sits in your environment, how your environment works, then you're really not solving business problems. In the 1990s, for the students back there, when electricity was first formed, right, people like me went to work and we got behind a desktop computer in the headquarters or one of the remote sites and we worked, then we went home. And the computer stayed here, and they went through the security stack, in this case a proxy, but it could be whatever the security stack was, and they were protected. Is that the environment we live in today? Hell no. Hell no. We have this now. We have this. This is where we live. I take my computer home. I go to make dinner. I have the laptop on, and the 7-year-old sits down and goes, Google. Ooh, flying pigs. I want flying pigs. Double click. Mommy, there's flying pigs on your screen. Great. That's going back to site B, it's infected, and the world comes to an end, right? I mean, the reality is that in today's environment, you have to understand, do all your users have laptops? Are there desktops? Do you have this and laptops? Are the phones the companies, or are they bring your own device? Because cloud proxy, see, one of the problems with traditional proxy is traditional proxy was guarding this, but this is going away. So proxy has diminished in the last 10 years. Now what you're seeing with cloud proxy is you put an agent, whether it's your antivirus program or a distinct agent on the laptop, whether it's a MacBook, whether it's a PC, whether it's your phone, whatever, it's going through the cloud proxy instance. So you as an administrator, it doesn't matter whether Susie is on her couch in the corporate office, your policy is being applied so she cannot go to phishing sites. She cannot go to sites based on your policy. This matters in a mobile workforce. You're going to see a resurgence of proxy now over the next 10 years because of cloud proxy. Because I can go ahead and now I can control the corporate resources when they leave the brick and mortar. This is going to go away over time. Most of us be retired when it's fully gone away, but this is starting to go away, right? People are working from home now. And I don't see that diminish, or I see this continuing to diminish. This is going to be, these users all over the world, this is the new place to defend. Cloud proxy solves that problem. So in your environment, ask yourself, how do I protect the laptop when it leaves my brick and mortar? How do I do that today? How do I do that? You got to have an answer to that as a security guy. And you got to find out, how many of our people use mobile devices? You got to understand that percentage. You really got to know that so you can make a plan to the business to protect that. You don't want to wait until it's too late before you make this game plan. You know, the other item to understand is most everything as far as applications your business is using are applications in the cloud. How are you going to protect against that? That's fairly new. The last 5 years, this has emerged. You need to understand a strategy for that. Cloud Proxy solves that. So does CASB. I go to Boris's very safe social media site, not cyber criminal for sure. I go to hit this site. I'm not just hitting this site. All these objects, this HTML, Java, there's objects that can be downloaded. It ultimately cannot matter, should not matter whether I'm here in a hotel or I'm here in a corporate site. You've got to have a game plan to protect that. This is still a massive vector of compromise. We don't have time, unfortunately, but I want to mention one technology that is emerging now for you to consider in your enterprises, and that's web isolation. I'll end with web isolation. We've got a few more minutes. And web isolation, the concept is, I'm a user, I get my laptop, I go to Boris's very safe social media. Web isolation says, everything's bad. I don't care what it is, it's bad. And what it's going to do in the cloud, it's going to open up a container. And all the objects, everything's going to get opened in that container. Only screenshots are rendered to the end user. They don't know, but that's all they get. Nothing actually opens, executes on their machine. They don't know any different, but it's in the container, in the cloud. And when they're done their web browsing experience, the container is imploded and it's done. Good site, bad site, doesn't matter. It's not just Symantec that has this technology. There's a lot of vendors out there that have it. It's common. It's emerging. Very few people are deploying it right now, but that's something to consider to explore from an intellectual perspective and from a usability in your future security stack. All right, questions?
Is there any product offerings in that space personally?
That's a great question.
So I'd love it from my father-in-law.
Yeah.
I'm tired of cleaning his computer.
Along those lines, are you guys supporting K9? It used to be out there a long time ago. I've used it at home. It was a blue coat.
That's the one that barks when it hit a, yeah.
Sure, yeah.
No, I think that's been deprecated. Yeah, that's a very good question. How do we make that for the retail market? I don't have an answer for that. At some point it's going to become available. It's just not right now, right? It's a great idea. I think because it's expensive, that would be the issue. Right, a corporation will typically invest in their security stack, but there's no way that, you know, someone would spend $100 for a web isolation, especially per year, whatever the subscription would be. So that's the problem with emerging technologies, right? When the big new TV comes out, it's like really expensive, right? It takes a few years for it to come down in price. So I think that's where we are now because it's emerging. But good point. At some point, I think there will be a retail market for that. Yes, sir.
Any of the users have privacy concerns with the
Yes.
as well?
Yeah, all right, thank you. I promise we'll end after this question. Thank you. SSL decryption. Proxies, I told you it's a man in the middle. How does it do it? Well, everything on the web, it's 70% or more SSL. yeah, we're acting as man in the middle, we're looking at it. We're breaking the encryption and slapping it back on. So, there are mechanisms to say if it's healthcare, categorize, so here's what categories matter. Categorize healthcare, finances. You say, I won't break it open. I won't look, right? In case someone says, well, you're gonna violate HIPAA. So we're not gonna violate HIPAA. We're not looking at healthcare stuff, we're not looking at finances, or any other category you decide as a business to say, don't look at that. So, SSL decryption is really important. If you're not decrypting, you're really not, as a security practitioner, you're not doing your job. You're not doing it well. Let me rephrase it, you're not doing it well. And all these solutions factor that in. Because you gotta have some exemptions, but you gotta be able to look, and you gotta be able to crack that open and take a look. You just have to be able to do that. If I'm a malware writer, I am definitely going over 443. I am definitely doing that. No way am I going over 80. So, all right, guys, I'm up. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.